All right, in this lecture, we're going to learn how to improve the grammatical range and accuracy. So let's start the lesson. All right, the activities that we're going to look at in this lesson is going to be spot the mistakes. So we're going to learn how to spot mistakes, and we will brainstorm the tenses. And then we are going to look at using discourse markers to expand your responses. Discourse markers is obviously the connecting and linking words that we can use to expand our responses. All right, let's look at this. So in part two of the test, it's testing the ability for you to be able to talk about a topic and develop ideas about the topic and the use of relevant vocabulary and grammar. The examiner will give the test taker a task card with written prompts and will ask them to talk about the topic for 1 to 2 minutes, including the bullet points on the card. The test taker will have 1 minute to prepare for the talk and will be given a piece of paper and a pencil to make notes. These notes can be referred to during the talk. The examiner will tell the test taker when to begin speaking and when to stop. At the end of the talk, the examiner will ask 1 or 2 very brief follow-up questions. This part lasts 3 to 4 minutes. This is part 2, all right? So you will be given a topic. You will have 1 minute to prepare, and you will have the task card. You will see the prompt or question, and you will prepare a topic in 1 minute, and then you will speak for about 2 minutes. And you shouldn't stop until the examiner asks you to stop, all right? Okay, let's do our first activity. The first activity is spotting the mistake. There is one mistake with the verb form in each sentence, and you should find and correct it, all right? So in this activity, when I show you the mistakes, you will have to spot the mistake and you'll have to correct it. Let's test your understanding of the grammar, all right? Which mistakes you often make with the verb tenses, all right? So think about your own mistakes. Everyone will be unique and you might be making those mistakes, but here we're going to learn how to spot them and correct them. To get a good score in grammatical range and accuracy, students will need to show the examiner that they can use a variety of different tenses and verb forms, all right? Not just using the simple tenses. You should use a variety of tenses. All right, let's just talk about this activity. Please pause the video here and do this activity on your own. In this activity, what you need to do is you will read these sentences, paying special attention to the verbs, find and correct one mistake in each sentence. For example, the house is belonging to my parents. What's the mistake here? What tense form should you use? And how you're going to correct these sentences. Try to correct these sentences, and when you come back, we're going to review the answers. All right, I hope you had a chance to do this activity on your own and correct mistakes and spot the mistakes. Let's look at the answers here. So number 1, it says the house is belonging to my parents. It's a general thing, right? So you have to use present simple here, right? And not the present continuous, okay? So the house belongs to my parents. In this case, it's a general thing, and for general things, we use the present simple. Suddenly, I realized that someone is following me. I realized in the past, right? So you have to use the past, was following me. Suddenly, I realized that someone was following me. I know her since I was a small child. I have known her, all right? Present perfect here. You will use present perfect instead of present tense, present simple tense. I have known her since I was a small child. We were often going to seaside for holidays. We often went, right? It's talking about past. So we often went or used to. It's a habitual thing in the past. To have to explain habits in the past, you use used to go, right? So we often used to go or we often went to the seaside for holidays. It was the first time I went to India. It was the first time I had been to India, right? I promised I give it to her the next day. I promised I would give it to her next day. The city had been destroyed hundreds of years ago. The city was destroyed. So it's in the past. City was past simple is what you're going to use here. The city was destroyed 100 years ago. I knew that she is coming. I knew in the past, I knew that she was coming. All right. So these are the small mistakes that people can make, and you can lose marks for that. But you have to make sure, if you're talking about past, use past tense. If you're talking about habits in the past, you use, used to, go and stuff like that. All right. Let's look at the next activity, brainstorming for tenses, right? Describe a subject that you liked or didn't like at school. Think about some ideas that you liked. Think about ideas of about a subject that you liked or didn't like at school. All right. The possible answers that you're going to use, for example, this is how you would explain, right? So in you would use past simple, you will use past continuous, you would use past perfect, you would use past present perfect, would, used to. You can also use conditionals if you're talking about conditions, conditional statements. If I had, then I would. You have in conditionals, you use a if clause and you use a main clause. So if clause would be in past simple, and then it would be with modal, right? I would. So that's the structure you would use. Present simple and present perfect. I have always wanted. I have always wanted. And you can use the modals. All right. So some of the tenses that you can use here: past simple, past perfect, past continuous, modal, used to, and present perfect. So let's look at some sentences. If you would be describing the prompt said to you, think about describe a subject that you liked or didn't like at school. This is how you say: I was 12 years old. I had just started secondary school. I was having problems with maths. I had never liked math. So you're talking about the subject that you didn't like. This is just an example to give you an example of what kind of tenses you can use when explaining things about the past. During math lessons, I would sit and stare out of the window. A modal is used here. I used to get my brother to help me with my homework. So it's about talking about a habit in the past. You would use used to, right? I used to get my brother to help me with my homework. To this day, I have never understood calculus, right? This is present perfect tense here. All right, in this activity, what I want you to do is choose a part 2 topic from below. You have 8 topics here. You have 1 minute to brainstorm the tenses you could use to talk about this topic and to make notes. So choose any of these topics that you want. Use 1 minute and try to prepare your response and think about the tenses that you're going to use. Do this, pause this video here, take 1 minute to prepare. All right, extending grammatical complex and compound sentences. So obviously, when you are showing that you have a good grammatical range, you will have to use complex and compound sentences. Students should try to use complex and compound sentences, right? So compound and complex sentences, we use the conjunction in the middle, and then you expand, right? So linking word, and then you expand ideas. If you're using 2 ideas, you'll use a linking word, and then you will expand your ideas. That's what it means. You can't just say that I was 12 years old. I like maths. Then so then is the linking word. So you will have to use it like that, but you have to have a flow, right? And when you're using the linking words, you should use it grammatically correctly. Look at the sentences, paying particular attention to the words, phrases in bold and grammar form that will follow, and students should underline the correct form which follows the word, phrase in the bold. So let's do this activity. So underline the correct form to complete the sentences. Let's do this activity where you have 2 options, right? Separated by slash, right? From question 1 to 8, responses 1 to 8, you have to choose between 2 options that are given to you. So despite all of these, because of, where, who, so, but, although, because, which, these, if, these are all helping you. These are discourse markers. These are all helping you to relate and create a complex sentence or a compound sentence, which is not a simple sentence. You are taking 2 ideas and expanding and creating a complex sentence. So make sure that you know your grammar correctly. And if you have the correct grammar knowledge, you will be able to choose the correct answer. So do this activity on your own, pause the video here, choose between one of these correct answers. And when you come back, we're going to review the answers. All right, let's review the answers. So number one, I enjoy learning English despite the difficult grammar, right? Not despite of. You can use in spite of, but with despite, we don't use of. So you would say despite the difficult grammar. Number two, I'd like to go to Australia because of the wildlife, not because of I like the wildlife, right? Or you could say because I like the wildlife, all right? So when you're using because of, you have to use the noun straight away, okay? You can't use the subject. So that's the structures of grammar that you need to know. Number three, I know a lovely place where we can have a picnic, not where is good for a picnic, okay? Number four, my teacher who she was very nice. No, my teacher who was very nice was Mrs. Adams. Okay, this is a relative clause here. So relative clause is using who as a relative clause, and then you need was nice, not she was not. You don't need a subject here. Okay. Number five, my English is quite good, so that I can understand American movies? No. So I can understand American music. So is used for results, right? We have discussed this in a previous lesson. So is used for result, right? Not the reason, right? Number six, doing IELTS can be challenging, but the speaking test isn't difficult. That's the correct thing. But the speaking test is difficult. That is not but is used for contrasting, right? But is used when the sentences are different. So you can't say doing IELTS can be challenging and also speaking test is difficult. They both are difficult things. So you can't use but here. You have to use because, for example, right? So if you're using but, then you have to use the opposite, which is isn't difficult. Okay, so you have to think about the grammar here. You use but for contrasting. I am learning Mandarin Chinese, although it is difficult. But although is also used to contrast here, right? So it's difficult and I'm learning, even though it's difficult. You can also use even though here. You can't say it's easy because you're not contrasting. Then you're saying you can use because it's easy, but you can't use although, and then you're using it is easy, although it's easy, right? So you're not contrasting. So it would not make logical sense here. All right, I'm taking IELTS because I want to go abroad to study, because it's used to give reasons. I'm taking IELTS because I want to go to study, not I'm taking IELTS because going abroad to study, right? So you need the subject here. You need after because you will have to use a subject, which is I want. The school subject, this is a relative clause here. The school subject which was hardest for me was chemistry, not which it was hardest for me, because you don't need with which relative clause, you don't need the subject. You will straight away say was hardest for me. It's similar to what we did here just now, who. So you don't need the subject. It was hardest, was very nice, was hardest for me, was chemistry. If I work hard, this is first conditional here. If I work hard, I do well, or I will do well. With first conditional, you'll have to use I will do well. If I work hard, which is present tense, right? You'll have to use something that will happen in the future. I will do well, right? Okay, sounds good. I hope you got the answers correctly, but these are some of the things. If your grammar is a weak area, you'll have to improve your grammar, right? And this is just an IELTS course, but if you want to improve your grammar, get in touch with me and I will direct you to more grammar lessons. But you do have to make sure that your grammar is top level when you do your IELTS test. Okay. Sounds good. All right, let's do this activity. I'll pause the video here. And in this activity, what you want to do is take turns to make and say sentences that are true for you. All right, think about sentences that are true for you. think about writing the sentence, and now you know how to use despite, how to use because of, where, who, so, but, although, because, which. You know how to use if statements. All right, use all of that and try to write down your sentences. This is like your homework. It's up to you, but you can compare your sentences, go back and you can compare your sentences and see the structure. If you're using the same structure, try to do this practice. It's really going to improve how you use linking words, relative clauses, if statements, okay? And then when in your exam, when you're using them, you will use them correctly.